Hey guys, today we're going to talk about inverse functions. I'm not going to get too deep into details, but exponential functions and logarithmic functions, those are inverse functions. We'll study some more of that later, but for right now, let's just do some basic things with inverse functions. We have two functions, f of x and g of x, okay? And they're inverse functions if you compose the two and it equals x, okay? So if f of g of x equals x, and if g of f of x equals x, then you've got inverse functions. Then you know that two functions are inverses of each other, okay? So let's just practice part A. Verify that f of x and g of x are inverse functions. All right, that's what we'll do first. Verify that the two are inverse functions. Okay, so let me give you an example. F of x equals 2x plus 3, and g of x equals 1/2 x minus 3/2. All right, so here's f of x, that's a function, and I am going to tell you that g of x is the inverse function of f of x. Okay, I'm just going to tell you it's f of x, g of x, okay? Another way to write, if this really is the inverse of this function, you would call it f inverse of x, okay? That's really what you would call it. In this case, I'm just going to call it g of x, okay? But basically, if these two are inverses of each other, one would be f of x and the other would be f inverse of x. That's what I have written there, okay? All right, but let's go ahead and just compose this. So it says if f of g of x equals x, we're good, and then you have to do g of f of x. So we'll just do one quick example. We'll do f of g of x, okay? And that is going to be f of, well, g of x is this, 1/2 x minus 3/2. So 1/2 x minus 3/2, okay? And now f of this is going to equal 2 times this plus 3. So it's 2 times 1/2 x minus 3/2 plus 3. All right, now we'll go ahead and distribute the 2. So 2 times 1/2 is 1, so that's just going to be 1x, okay? 2 times negative 3/2 is negative 3, so minus 3. Then we have plus 3, and those cancel, right? And we're just left with x. Okay, so that works. Now let's try g of f of x. I've never come across a case where you compose it one way and it works, and then you compose it the other way and it doesn't work. It could happen, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and do it like it says. It says to compose them both ways. So now g of f of x, okay? And so that's going to be g of f of x is 2x plus 3, so 2x plus 3, okay? And g of this is going to equal 1/2 times this minus 3/2, so 1/2 times 2x plus 3 minus 3/2, okay? And so distribute 1/2 times 2 is just 1, so we're left with x, okay? 1/2 times 3 is plus 3/2. Then we have minus 3/2. And these, of course, cancel, and we're left with x. So it looks like f of x and g of x are inverse functions, okay? All right, so that's how you're going to do those. Again, if this isn't enough of an example for you, just send me an email or whatever. I'll be glad to Zoom with you, whatever you need, okay? Let's try part B. Let's find an equation for the inverse function, okay? So find an equation for the inverse. Or in other words, just find the inverse function, okay? Inverse, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do now is just find an inverse, okay? So let me give you an example. All right, the example is y equals negative 2x plus 5, okay? And what I'm going to suggest this is what I'm going to suggest we do. Instead, if you see y, what I want you guys to do is just change that to an f of x, okay? Anytime you see y, let's just call it f of x. Okay? All right, so instead of a y, we'll just call it f of x, okay? Now here's how you find the inverse function, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to switch the f of x and you're going to switch it with the x. So instead of writing f of x, you're now going to write x. And here, instead of writing x, you're going to write f of x, but there's going to be a little twist, okay? So watch this. Just switch this with this. So now it's going to be x equals -2. And I'm going to put the f of x here, but what I'm going to do is change it to the inverse. So it's going to be f inverse of x, okay? And then plus 5. That's all you got to do, okay? Just switch the x and the f of x. Once you switch it, put the x here and then put f inverse of x here, okay? And now solve for f inverse of x. So what do you have to do first? That's right, subtract the 5. So now subtract the 5 to the other side. So it's x minus 5 equals -2 times f inverse of x. Okay, now get that by itself by dividing by -2. Okay, so now we have x minus 5 over -2 equals f inverse of x. And all I'm going to do now is just clean it up. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, okay? So I'm going to put this guy first, so it says f inverse of x equals, okay? Now, I don't typically like a negative in my denominator, so I'm going to put it in my numerator. So if I put this negative sign in my numerator, it's going to be a negative x here, but it's also distributed to the -5, making a positive 5. Okay? Or you can just put the negative out in front of the entire thing and just leave everything else. Okay, so me personally, I don't have a preference really, but I'll just show you. You can have it like this. So the negative's going to go to the numerator, so it's -x positive 5, okay, over 2. And if you really wanted to, you can switch the 5 and the -x, so it could say 5 minus x, if you don't like leading with a negative term right there, okay? So anyway, that's how you're going to do it. There's the inverse of this guy. Now I guarantee if you compose those two, it's going to equal what? That's right, it will equal x. Let's do another one, okay? All right, let's try this. Y equals, or in other words, f of x equals, right? Let's go -2/3 x plus 2. All right, here we go. Switch the x and the f of x. So this is going to be x equals -2/3. Now it's f inverse of x, okay, plus 2. All right, now subtract off the 2. So x minus 2 equals -2/3 f inverse of x, okay. Now, instead of dividing, remember over here we divided by -2? That's because it was just a whole number. Over here we have a fraction. So instead of dividing by -2/3, let's multiply by the reciprocal, okay? So I'm going to multiply that by the reciprocal. It'll cancel, okay? And on this side I have x minus 2, okay? I'm going to multiply it by the reciprocal, so -3/2, okay? And that's going to equal f inverse of x. All right, now again, I'm just going to clean this up. All right, so I'm going to write this first. So f inverse of x equals, and watch what I'm going to do here. I see that I have a denominator, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and write it as a fraction with a 2 in my denominator, okay? And I'm not doing anything crazy here. I'm just cleaning this up. And it's a -3 in my numerator, so -3 times x is -3x, okay? And it's a -3 times a -2, which is positive 6. All right, and there's my inverse function, okay? And you, just out of curiosity, let's see if they are inverses of each other, okay? So f of x is -2/3 x plus 2, okay? So f of x is -2/3 x plus 2, and f inverse of x is, what did I say? -3x plus 6 over 2. -3x plus 6 over 2. All right, so let's go ahead and compose the two. So f of this guy, right? So f of -3x plus 6 over 2, okay? And now it's f of this. So it's negative 2/3 times x, which is this. So times negative 3x plus 6 over 2. Okay, and then plus 2. All right, cross your fingers. This looks crazy. Okay, don't even trip. Remember, all you're doing is distributing this to this. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do it. It's, you know, a negative 2 times the numerator and a 3 times the denominator. So let's go ahead and do it that way. Negative 2 times negative 3x is positive 6x, so 6x. Negative 2 times positive 6, that is negative 12, so minus 12. 3 times 2 is 6, okay? And then we have plus 2. And if you want, let's split them apart. So we have 6x over 6, right? 6x over 6 minus 12 over 6 plus 2, okay? The 6's cancel, we're left with x, minus, well, 12 divided by 6 is 2, plus 2, these cancel, and we're left with x. So again, I'm just going to check one way. You could check the other if you really care or want the practice, okay? Otherwise, that's it. Again, good luck. If you need any help, just get in touch with me. I'll Zoom with you. No big deal. Have a great day. Bye.